Tonight, New Orleans is a city in crisis.
Police are looking for leads.
Extremely violent crime wave.
The teenage boy is now dead.
Shot and killed overnight.
Dubbed the murder capital of the country. Some visitors remain blissfully unaware of the statistics.
And if we had a chance to do it all again.
Seeking out the charm and culture of the city. But those who know it well.
Oh, memory.
Warning, unless real changes are made, few will be safe.
It can't be allowed. We have to stop accepting this.
Yeah. New Orleans failed, flooding the city, leaving tens of thousands.
New Orleans feels like a broken promise of kills, of failed parties, of racism flowing through our neighborhoods with the burning passion to not overstep into certain areas of quote-unquote violence. New Orleans is a drained place with people tired of not getting into the valley of peace.
Can you imagine a world without violence?
No.
No? Okay. I think about that a lot, a world without violence, and I used to ask young people that question, and their answer was always like, absolutely not, right? I can't imagine a world without violence. I can't imagine a world without prisons. I can't imagine, and I think it's crazy that we can't, it's so beyond what we know that we absolutely can't imagine a world without us doing harm to each other or ourselves.
I feel like there's always gonna be a person who feels inferior to the next, or feels like they can't disagree to agree, or like that they have to strive towards something.
Violence to me means harm done unto others or ourselves.
Violence is any interaction between two people where one person is oppressed through the use of specific actions, harassment, physical violence, things like that.
They were taught violence themselves. Sometimes violence is a means of survival. Sometimes they are faced with a different type of violence.
Inequality, whether that be on a social scale, a financial scale.
The lack of resources, money issues, poverty, people teetering on the poverty line.
How people grow up, the limited opportunities.
Most of New Orleans, not all, but most of it is a food desert.
The connection between not having the resources and the care, but then also the violence in New Orleans is most definitely intertwined with each other.
People can't meet their basic needs, everything from a roof over the head, food on the table, to being able to go to the doctor and you have, a headache.
Paying jobs that are paying well enough to keep your head above float.
Straight up, the things that we have to survive under capitalism makes it such that we resort to violence.
Financial strain on your family. Maybe someone went to jail, maybe someone went to prison, and you weren't able to, recuperate or get back that same stability.
Kind of have developed a little bit more anxiety and apprehension, just, with me moving around the city in general. When I lived in another part of the East where I used to constantly hear gunshots, sometimes I would feel uncomfortable because you're wondering, what if a bullet comes through my wall or something like that?
I feel like it's put me in a fight or flight mode a lot when I'm in public and not in the safety of my home.
I live in Mid-City. I know a lot of people in my community. I know my neighbors, most everybody on my block, and we all kind of watch out for the neighbors.
I bike to a gas station almost every morning, and I just recently stopped because my aunt had said that same day that I went, an hour or two after I left, a man was killed in front of it. That puts a dent on how I feel about my safety. But at the same time, I mean, you can't live in fear, so you just gotta walk and be that person you want to see in your community.
You know, we gotta be real too. Like, our generations are raised a lot of times with these ideas of violence that are really glorified.
And most of the time, those kids, whatever, like kids don't even be into all that. Don't even really know what all that is until they go to school, around friends, social media, and they just pick up on it thinking it's cool because that's what they see everybody else trying to do.
It seems because people keep posting like mainly on Instagram and TikTok, people want to know what happened, and then it just keeps on building up until everything just bursts off.
I believe the media will say feeds us propaganda about the violence here in Orleans. Always.
Because you see on the news like the murder capital and all of these things, but then if you go turn on the news somewhere like Chicago or somewhere else, you see the same thing. So like, really, what is the truth?
I live in the 7th Ward. You know, you saw the news every day, you'd swear I live in a war zone. And that's just not true. That is not my lived experience, and it's certainly not the lived experience of all my neighbors. That's not to say violence is not present in my neighborhood, but I think it's unfair because there's just as much violence up in the North Shore, but you don't see the news being covered with violence that's happening on the North Shore.
I feel like America mainly put out violence that's like black on black crime.
Just healthcare alone. Like a lot of the violence we're seeing today, like we were talking a few seconds ago, are responses to trauma, which are responses to mental health issues that we could, as a community, address if we were providing healthcare to all of our citizens in a way that's equitable. We're not.
The right mindset, and people are struggling with things that they don't push out to get help with, and they turn to, violence to express themselves.
Emotional baggage that a lot of teenagers that commit the crimes or whatever, like the emotional baggage they got, or like what they've been through and the stuff they go through and see.
It's because we lack empathy, and that all falls back to what you said. Like they don't really care.
The history, New Orleans was like a slave port, right? This is where a lot of people were coming in, and they had some of the largest plantations like Angola and other places, and so when slavery was no longer a thing, they had to figure out how can we still keep this free, cheap labor, so they started putting people in prison.
Hurricane Katrina uprooted a lot of people, and it uprooted families and consciousness, like community consciousness. We no longer have that because everybody's in a disarray. It's so individualized now.
And that is kind of the root to everything, right? How do we keep people in prison? Well, they have to commit crimes, but we have to create this environment for them to create these crimes. So if they're hungry, they don't have no food. You can't steal.
It's really hard to get together and to keep those family bonds as hard or as simple as others could who haven't been uprooted. Gentilly was actually one of the meccas for black-owned businesses in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So after Katrina, they built that right there on Elysian Fields. They built that highway, that expressway that has all of the McDonald's and the gas stations and the liquor stores on the end. Mm-hmm. They built that and put those people out of business. They knew they probably didn't want to come back, or they knew it was going to be hard for people to come back, so they gave them a mouthful of money to shut them up and to keep them not there. So now all you have is fast food, Walmart, and Gentilly, and that's literally all you have.
After Katrina, a lot of the schools, they didn't reopen, or they reopened under different names with different grade levels and whatnot. So I know before Katrina, a big thing, one way you can learn a lot about a person would be to ask them what school they went to.
But I think that the city should reach out to the people in those communities that want to be involved.
Introducing them to the arts, technology, coding.
Youth programs, getting the youth more acclimated to shifting from just being in school all day to doing stuff with their time that's going to benefit them in the long run.
I'm from the 80s. That's when we had community watch. It's 10 o'clock, do you know where your kids are sort of situation. And I think that my neighborhood's been fairly good. We've got a lower police presence I usually find that police don't improve a situation. In fact, there might be even more harassment from law enforcement.
When they see like a young black boy getting into some trouble, the first thing they want to do is, oh, we're going to throw him in juvie. Or, we're going to penalize him for his actions. And I'm not saying that they're not supposed to get dealt with accordingly to whatever they're doing. What they don't realize is a lot of these kids are struggling and not getting the help that they need.
As someone who is neurodivergent themselves, I feel like that's why I feel strongly about people not being categorized as violent, especially when you have mental health disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar. The act of seeking help or practicing or working on your mental health is, I feel like, trying to stay grounded, trying to stay present with yourself and understanding that, your past or your present, you can't really control. You can control your future and what you do in this present, but you can't control the outcome. You can only pray and manifest for it.
There's a lot of mental health in my family, a lot of mental health issues in my family. We didn't know it was mental health because we didn't have that language. We didn't talk about that when we were young people. Like, I have aunties and uncles, and they would just be like, she ain't right. That was like, she kind of special. She ain't really right. She ain't all. And what they were really saying was like, this person is struggling with their mental health, but they didn't have the language for that.
Those people are actively fighting something that you know nothing about, and for you to say that they're violent and they're really trying their best is sad, and it's kicking someone when they're down.
So we just did this whole workshop on like how our own social identities and how the world sees us because of our social identities. I think a lot of times police officers are seeing violence take place and they are assuming things about people. Oh, you're acting this way because, like we were talking about earlier, because you are aggressive, because you are violent, because you don't know how to, be appropriate. So then they react in inappropriate ways. I feel like if we took into concern people's mental health when we were dealing with violent situations, then the ways that we would deal with it would be very different.
One of the ways that we can process trauma and process what we're not able to just accept, because as humans we can't accept just horrible violence, is by educating, it's by reading, it's by exploring art, it's about learning about each other's humanities. All those things are huge roles.
A lot of schools in America, they don't take the time to really learn the kids and see what they need. You see a child acting out and you reprimand them, but why are they acting out? What's going on at home? Like, you have to give them attention and give them care and really get to the root cause. And like, we don't do that in education. We just send them to detention, which goes back to like the prison thing.
I've seen too many times, I'll say that, of where a neurodivergent person or a person with disabilities who's having a meltdown in public is perceived as aggressive and violent and is either killed or injured or detained in not an ethical way. My father is a police officer. I feel as if even inside of the operations of the police force, it's not taken seriously. The people who are working every day. My dad has 2 more years in this, and I'm scared because of how crazy it has gotten out here, but also because of the amount of things he has to take in, and it's not coming out. And there's no mental health days. My dad works a 60-hour work week every week with a week off maybe every 2 months. That's crazy. That's too much on someone's mind, and I feel like there's no mental health protocols within the force or without.
But what if we had a world where we took care of those people? What if we had a world that, like, if you had that thought very early as a child and we raised you to, like, let go of that so you didn't become violent? Is that possible?
I don't know, man. Probably. Then you also got the old heads who are like strict and like, no, I'm not with the help.
Yeah.
Because you can't say people who don't want to be seen.
That's a big point.
I don't know, I just feel like growing up it was less crime. I don't feel like New Orleans should be a place where if you talking to a tourist, you have to be like, yeah, you gotta watch out for this area. It should just be a calm and collected place.
And to actually become a place where people can actually come and like explore and do things without having having a fear that they can't settle down or like be outside.
Like violence happens less often, just like in all kinds of areas and like with all kinds of people, and that we can like find a way to get people the resources they need so they don't feel the need to like commit violent acts.
That people become a lot more financially aware and especially emotionally aware and like emotionally mature, because one thing that I've realized, at least for my generation down here especially, is that a lot of people don't really know how to genuinely express how they feel about certain things happening, and even like the thought of genuinely talking about how they feel makes them like tense up and feel weird. And I just hope people get more used to just like really saying how they feel.
Everybody should be able to come together like one big family.
The people come together and like it's not so divided, because I feel like if we just all come together and actually make an effort, I think we can change the city.
Like activities, more programs to get into,
for better resources to be shared equally and fairly, and a better education system.
For people to start really listening to the people who live here, for the media to start listening to us youth and everyone and really hear our stories more authentically.
New Orleans feels like a promise of freeness, of happiness, of amazing parties, of music flowing throughout our neighborhoods with a burning passion to second line our way into certain areas of quote-unquote streets. New Orleans is a happy place with people alive, of freeness, with connections of their brothers and sisters.
Just the community here and all the people.
The way that we can come together, that's really what New Orleans is. It's the people, what they do, and everything that they just live by.
The people, the food, the culture, everyone walks past you and says, how you doing?
Is the fact that we have such a like unique community and so many like unique aspects of our culture.
It's like the music culture, specifically bounce music. Even though it's like heavily like party based, I feel like it's something you can like be interested in if you don't live here.
In our culture, like Mardi Gras.
It's Mardi Gras something.
And like traditions like Mardi Gras. I just really like that we have like our own special things and just
the food and the culture. We got good culture and food. So it's definitely food.
Like food.
We could all come together and have fun.
I like the effort that's put into having fun, the heart, like the strong parties, the way that people can celebrate anything into a celebration. It always brings everybody together.
Football season.
Different youth programs that I've done, the connections that I've made, and also the school that I go to.
I have so many friends and family here.
The family that I have down here, just like the energy of the city and the energy of the family members that I have down here compared to my original state of birth, they're a bit more lively, more energetic, more interesting to be around, and like seem like they really care.
And we have like a great sense of community within the city.
A feeling that you can't get anywhere else, and that brings me joy.
Let's go get 'em. Tamarind ringing. Let's go get 'em. How could I hear ya? Let's go get 'em. I can't get near you now. Let's go get 'em. Oh, well, crumble. Let's go get 'em. Oh, well, crumble. Let's go get 'em. Chief on Limbo now. Let's go get 'em. Say Chief on Limbo now. Let's go get 'em. Fire walk a mountain. Let's go get 'em. Don't drink from no fountain. Let's go get 'em. City well ran dry. Let's go get 'em. With your whole gang die. Let's go get 'em. Don't ask no question. Let's go get 'em. You don't know why. Let's go get 'em. Cheap like better. Let's go get 'em. Gang out together. Let's go get 'em. Dead for the mountain. Let's go get 'em. Dead for the border. Let's go get 'em. I'm the Indian told her. Let's go get 'em. Make the Creole wild west. Let's go get 'em.